One of the best aspects of Monster Hunter is the sheer variety of ways to play the game. This is all thanks to the various weapons and sheer amount of builds or sets that you can create. So I'm Darcblade with an Anti-Alatreon build for the Sword and Shield in Monster Hunter World Iceborne. Now the main purpose of an anti-build is to create a set that is made to counter a specific monster in the game. In this episode we're looking at countering Alatreon, providing hunters with 2 builds to take on the blazing black dragon. One safe, one risky. When it comes to elemental damage, the Sword and Shield can definitely benefit from elemental builds. This is all thanks to the sword slashes being quite quick. This combined with the long combos that you can pull off with the Sword and Shield means that you can power down the monster quite quickly. However, the elemental portion of your attack only applies to the sword slashes. It does nothing for when it comes to shield bashes, so that's something to be aware of. So the first build is the risky Anti-Alatreon Sword and Shield build. This build, much like all the risky builds in this series, makes use of the Safi'jiiva armor set, giving us a ton of DPS options, but comes with the downside of draining our health. So for this build you'll need the Safi Crested Crown Beta, Chest Alpha, Vambraces Beta, Belt Beta and Boots Beta. I'm also using a Blaze Charm 5, although you would replace this to match whatever element you wanted to use if you were using a different element. And for my weapon I'm using the Kia Slicer King. This has a health regen augmentation and then an elemental up augmentation, and when it comes to the custom mods I've simply gone for increasing the weapon's elemental rating as much as possible. You can of course use a different Kia weapon if you wanted to, so this build is quite customizable. As for the specialist tools, these are down to personal preference. Now when it comes to the jewels, you've got a lot to play around with. First of all, I've gone for a Blaze Jewel to max out the fire attack of this build. Of course, if you were using a different element, then you would replace this Blaze Jewel to match whatever new element you were using. I've then gone for an Evasion Jewel to max out Evade Window, Vitality Jewels for health boost, Expert Jewels to max out Critical Eye, a Sharp Jewel for Protected Polish, and then I've gone for a no-nonsense build, so I've gone for Attack Jewels to give us some attack boost. As for the jewels and the mantles, these are down to personal preference, to which I've gone for more attack jewels and protection jewels. So if you've done what I've done here, you should have a build with 150 health, 100 stamina, which would be 200 health and 150 stamina. When you're on a hunt and taking all your relevant consumables, you have a raw attack of 440 with white sharpness. You have 100% affinity, but this stat is shown with the true Dragon Vein Awakening buff in effect. You have a fire rating of 840 with a decent defense of 1051 that is strong against every element except for dragon. So when it comes to the skills, first of all you have Critical Eye at level 7. Critical Eye is a skill that increases the base affinity of a build. You have Fire Attack level 6, increasing the fire rating and damage of this build. Of course, if you were using a different weapon with a different element, you would replace Fire Attack to match whatever new element you were using. You have Evade Window level 5. Evade Window is a very useful defensive skill that gives us increased invulnerability frames when we perform dodges. So with Alatreon we can pretty much roll through or away from all of its attacks. You have Attack Boost at level 4, which can be potentially level 6 when we're in our mantles. Attack Boost is a skill that increases the raw attack value of a build, so it does nothing for the elemental portion, but it still means that we're going to be doing increased damage to a monster, and at level 4 or above it also provides us a bonus extra 5% base affinity. You have Health Boost at level 3, allowing our health to get to that maximum of 200. You have Blight Resistance level 3. Blight Resistance is a useful skill against Alatreon as it nullifies all elemental blights, so we don't have to worry about bringing null berries on the hunt. You have Crit Boost level 3, which is a skill that increases our damage when we crit a monster, but it only increases the damage for the raw portion of our attacks, not the elemental portion. You have Protected Polish level 1. Protected Polish is a useful skill that allows us to put a protective coating over our sharpness gauge, preventing any sharpness loss for a small duration of time after we sharpen our weapon. Very useful as this build does only have a small portion of white sharpness. Anyway, you have Critical Element level 1. Critical Element is like Crit Boost but applies to the elemental portion of an attack. So when we crit a monster, we'll deal increased elemental damage. And then finally, when you're wearing the Rocksteady Mantle, you'll have Divine Blessing level 2, which gives us a small chance at taking reduced damage when we take a hit from a monster. As for the set bonus, you only have one of them, which is the Safi'jiiva Seal, True Dragon Vein Awakening. This is a buff that kicks in whenever we have our weapon drawn, giving us increased base affinity as well as giving us increased elemental damage. But when it comes to this set bonus, there is a downside. With each swing of your weapon, it will drain our health, leaving a red mark on our health bar, which means that should we take a hit, it can potentially one-shot us. However, after enough hits on a monster, that red health on our health bar will be healed. So it's a real risk-reward set bonus. So there we have it, that is the risky Anti-Alatreon build, but of course every build out there has pros and cons. When it comes to pros for this build is that it's exceedingly good when it comes to dishing out damage, both elemental and raw. meaning that you can easily power down Alatreon. On top of that, this build can easily get to 100% affinity without having to rely on the likes of Weakness Exploit or Maximum Might, which means that you don't always have to go for tenderizing monster body parts first. And then finally, when it comes to the pros, is the True Dragon Vein Awakening buff itself, which provides us very strong offensive skills for simply having our weapon drawn. But of course there are cons. The biggest con is the flip side of the True Dragon Vein Awakening with the health drain. With each slash of the weapon, it will drain our health, which can put us at risk. And the other con for this build is, unfortunately, there could be sharpness issues with this build, as the Kia slicer weapons only have a small portion of white sharpness. This is alleviated slightly with protective polish, but it's still something you have to be aware of. But regardless, as with all the risky builds out there, it is definitely strong and can easily take down Alatreon, especially when you're more comfortable with reading Alatreon's telegraphed moves. Which brings us on to the next build, which is the safe Anti-Alatreon Sword and Shield build. This build eliminates the health drain aspect with a no-nonsense, strong elemental DPS build. So for this you'll need the Golden Headdress beta, the Silver Soul Mail beta, Silver Soul Braces beta, Silver Soul Coil beta, and the Silver Soul Greaves beta. I'm also using a Frost Charm 5 as we're using an ice weapon, and for my weapon I'm using the Barioth Sword and Shield. This simply has an elemental up augmentation and then an augmentation of your choice, to which I've put a defense increase augmentation. Again, you can use a different weapon with a different element if you so wish, so long as it doesn't really require any extra handicraft and comes with a positive affinity. Just remember though, if you swap out the weapon, to swap out the Frost Charm to match whatever new element you are using. As for the specialist tools, these are down to personal preference again. When it comes to the jaws, again you've got a fair few to play around with. First of all, I've gone for a Frost Jaw to max out the ice attack of this build. Of course, as always, if you were using a different weapon with a different element, you would replace the Frost Jaw to match whatever new element you were using. I've then gone for Resistor Jaws for blight resistance, Expert Jaws for some critical eye, Vitality Jaw for health boost, Tenderizer Jaws for weakness exploit, a Sharp Jaw for protective polish, and then you have a jaw to play around with, to which I've gone for a Handicraft Jaw to give us a little bit of extra sharpness. And then finally the jaws on the mantles, I've gone for Expert Jaws again and Protection Jaws. So if you've done what I've done here, you should have a build with 150 health, 100 stamina, which would be 200 health and 150 stamina when you're on a hunt and taking all your relevant consumables. You have a raw attack of 371 with a decent chunk of white sharpness. You have 55% base affinity, which can be 100% when you take into account weakness exploit, so when you're attacking monster weak points that have been tenderized through clutch claw attacks first. You have an ice rating of 640 with an OK defense of 1056 that is strong against fire and dragon, but unfortunately weak to the other elements. As for the skills, first of all you have Ice Attack at level 6. Ice Attack is a skill that increases the ice rating and damage of this build, and of course if you were using a different weapon with a different element, you would replace this to match whatever new element you were using. Anyway, you have Critical Eye level 5, which can be level 7 when we're wearing our mantles. You have Slinger Capacity level 5, a byproduct of the armor we're wearing, but is useful. It allows us to carry more slinger ammunition when we're on a hunt. You have Health Boost level 3, Light Resistance level 3, Critical Boost level 3, Weakness Exploit level 3. Weakness Exploit is a skill that gives us increased affinity when we're attacking monster weak points. And should these weak points be tenderized through clutch claw attacks first, this increase to our affinity is even greater. Weakness Exploit at level 3 can potentially provide us an extra 50% affinity, allowing us to get to that 100% affinity with this build. Anyway, you have Windproof level 1, which allows us to resist minor wind attacks, but this is kind of useless on Alatreon, but it was a byproduct of the gear we're wearing. You have Handicraft level 1, a byproduct of the jaws we're using. Handicraft basically increases the sharpness of whatever weapon we're using slightly. And again, when you're wearing the Rocksteady mantle, you have Divine Blessing at level 2. Finally, when it comes to the set bonuses, you have 2 of them, both linked to the Silver Rathalos Essence. For wearing 2 pieces of the armor, you'll have the Slinger Ammo Secret, allowing us to get the Slinger Capacity skill up from a standard level 3 to a maximum of level 5. And for wearing 4 pieces of the armor, you have True Critical Element, which is the main reason we've gone for this armor set, to be honest. True Critical Element greatly increases the elemental damage of our attacks when they crit a monster. And as we can get that 100% affinity, it means that we should be able to make use of this set bonus quite effectively. But even though this is a safe build, it again has pros and cons. The biggest pro for this build is again it's quite strong when it comes to dealing elemental damage to a monster, meaning it should be able to easily power down Alatreon. On top of that, it has very high affinity, meaning that we can get to that 100% affinity, and that combined with true critical element as well as critical boost means that again it adds to our overall DPS. And then finally, when it comes to the pros, this build does have a few quality of life skills, not loads. It does have health boost, blight resistance, protective polish, slinger capacity and a few others, which makes the hunt feel a little bit more easier than it is. But unfortunately there are cons. The biggest cons for this build is, again, this build potentially could have sharpness issues. I mean, it has a decent chunk of white sharpness, which means that you won't be sharpening the weapon as much as you would with the previous risky build, but it means that if you were to use a different weapon, for example, then if it required handicraft, you're going to be a little bit out of luck. And the other con for this build is that it really does rely on you tenderizing monster body parts and making the most of weakness exploit, which for light weapons can be an issue, although the sword and shield has the claw uppercut which tenderizes in one hit, but it's still something you should be aware of with this build. But regardless, if you're looking for something a little bit more safer to use against Alatreon, if you're not confident with reading its moves yet, then this is a build I can recommend. So there we have it, those are two builds that I can recommend for taking on Alatreon with the sword and shield. Now of course, as you farm the monster more and more, you will get Alatreon gear and weaponry, which will allow you to take on the hunt a little bit more easily, as they have very high elemental defensive and offensive ratings. But until then, these builds will work just fine. So until next time, I've been Darcblade, bringing you Anti-Alatreon builds for the sword and shield in Monster Hunter World Iceborne. Hope you enjoyed the video, thanks for watching, subscribe and like for more.